Welcome to the Art of Money podcast with Art McPherson.
And thanks for checking out the Art of Money podcast. My name is Mark Owens alongside Art McPherson and Luke McCarty. All the information for the McPherson Financial Group, you can find it at theartofmoneyradio.com. So when it comes to our taxes, 60% of the people surveyed by Nationwide, well, they think that their taxes are not only going to go up, but they'll go up significantly over the next 4 years. Unfortunately, 57% admit they rarely even think about how much taxes they're going to owe in retirement. So, Art McPherson, that sounds like a setup for unnecessary expenses once we get to retirement and having to pay more taxes.
Yes. One of the things that everybody makes the assumption of is when I hit retirement, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket.
Yep.
Well, that always depends on how well you've done in your savings side. So if you've done a really good job saving money and accumulating the type of assets you need to retire, there's a high probability you'll retire. And a lot of times what I like to talk about, and you talk about this with me all the time, Mark, is giving our clients a pay raise in retirement. So their actual take-home money that goes into their bank account every week is more than what they had while working. So if we're doing that, there's a high probability that you're going to be in the same bracket you were in when you were working. So we have some tax strategies that we want to help our clients go through, and we do a lot of tax planning because if you're paying taxes on all your retirement income, you could have a high tax bracket. But if we can take half of that income and have it tax-free, or even half of it and have it tax-deferred, or tax efficient, we want to be able to do those kind of things. But we would like all of our clients to be tax free. So we had a client that we started working with about 8 years ago. It took us about 7 years to do this. And this year was the first year that we went from $120,000 of income they were paying 100% tax on because it was coming out of qualified accounts, IRAs, 401ks, things along those lines. And this year they only had to write a check to the IRS for $17.
Nice.
Yep. So it was almost every bit of their income was tax free.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. It's called the Replace My Paycheck Challenge. You can go to artofmoneyradio.com, fill out a quick form, takes just a couple of minutes, and we'll get you started how you can completely replace your income and get a paycheck while you're in retirement. Art McPherson, tell me a little bit more about it.
Well, basically, one of the things we'll evaluate for you is what do you need? I think a lot of people are very confused with this, Mark. They don't really know what they need in retirement, and they are thinking, well, I made $200,000 while I was working. I probably need $200,000 in retirement. Not really, because most people while working, because you have your 401k contributions, you have your healthcare costs, you have all your little benefits that come out, your life insurance, your disability, all those other things you pay for at work. You usually only see about 60% of what you make on paper. So you pay tax on the $200, but because of all your tax and all your withholding that comes out, usually you're only living on about 60% of that. So you're maybe living on $120,000 when you made on paper $200,000. So right. Those kind of evaluations is what we sit down and do. And if you're really living on that $120,000, that's about $10,000 a month of income. So we want to make sure that if you hit retirement button and it starts here this month for you, can we replace that $10,000 a month you're used to seeing in the door? And we'll look at all your sources. So if you have Social Security, where is that? Are you old enough to start claiming it? You can start claiming 62 with Social Security. You just have to be careful because everything you do, once you turn it on, it's there for the rest of your life, the rest of retirement. So you want to make sure you're making good decisions. So we have all kinds of great, wonderful tools and software that will show our clients the sweet spot, of when to turn on Social Security. And then how long do we pull money from all these other sources that they may have? Do they have a pension? Do we have lump sum payouts available? Do we have monthly payouts available? Can we integrate that with their Social Security? And then how much money do we have in a 401k or IRAs or Roths? And how do we integrate that for retirement income too?
There's a defined moment when people start to relax about their retirement planning. It's when they realize that Art McPherson can help you replace not just a portion of your current take-home pay, but all of it. It's the McPherson Financial Group Replace My Paycheck Challenge. Go to artofmoneyradio.com, fill out a quick form, takes just a couple of minutes, and we'll get you started. Again, artofmoneyradio.com. It's the Replace My Paycheck Challenge, courtesy of the McPherson Financial Group. Okay, so this question may sound very simple, but it's amazing how many people in retirement don't have this. There was a recent Money Talk survey that suggests that when retirees, when they're asked if there's anything they might have done differently when they prepared for retirement, Art, the most common response is they didn't have a written financial plan. That sounds so simple, but Art McPherson, explain to me why that matters so much.
Well, I think people feel really inadequate on how to do that. Most people that are successful for retirement, what they did really, really well at was they just saved a certain percentage of their income while they worked for their life. And usually it was more than 10%. Mm-hmm. And those people are in really, really good shape. But it really takes planning to be able to know what you need to do. And if you're younger, typically, you have other things in life that you're worried about. You're worried about getting a house for your family. You're worried about having babies like Luca's doing right now. You're worried about, having the things you need to have for your family to exist. So putting an extra $50, $100, $200, $500 into a 401k doesn't seem so appealing. You'd much rather put in a pool, or you'd much rather get a new
golf cart
for the kids. Yes, exactly. So you're stuck in now versus future. And when we're young, we're never going to die. We're never going to retire. We're just going to go, 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 go.
That's right.
Well, that's true. When you're young, you're not really thinking about retirement. However, that will too happen. And if you have not prepped or planned, by the time you hit 40, you're already starting to lose time on the retirement calendar, because you can never make up for lost time. And what I mean by that is the compounding of those dollars. So the earlier you start, the better off you are. And one of the things we do for everybody when they come in here is we put a plan together for them. They will see exactly, here's what income we can pull, here's how long the money will last, and do you run into trouble? So if we go through a really bad market cycle, is that going to derail your retirement planning? And if it is, how do we make adjustments so that that doesn't happen in the future? So we're always doing the best case scenario, average case scenario, worst case scenario. We call that a Monte Carlo, and we're showing them all the time. And I want to make sure it works even if we go through really, really bad cycles in the market.
We've been talking about the plans that we make, and we just want to have enough money to last in retirement to go 20, 30 years, Art McPherson. But there's one word and one phrase that we keep hearing over and over.
Let's talk about market volatility.
The recent market volatility.
You've had volatility in the last week.
A new, quote, regime for volatility.
When you see a lot of volatility.
The Dow plunging 800 points today as market volatility ramps up in a big way.
Volatility. So it's something, Art, as we start building that nest egg, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but as we get towards retirement and pulling the trigger on retirement, it becomes a huge issue. So Art McPherson, is now when we need to start paying attention to the amount of risk that we're taking in our portfolios?
Yes. Well, here's the big thing, Mark. When you first are starting out, volatility is your friend, because the up and down swings the market makes, you're putting money in every 2 weeks, into your 401k, and you're starting that phase, you're starting that whole long-term accumulation phase. It's when you're in that retirement red zone that becomes so critical, because a major market correction, a 40-50% correction, can completely derail what you thought you're going to be able to retire with, and the income stream you thought you're going to be able to pull from that. It can cut it in half or in a third, and it can make such a devastating time in the market. When you have a lot of money you've saved for 30 years, it's not $50,000 anymore. Now we're talking $500,000 or $1 million or $2 or $3 million. Well, when that goes down 50%, you just lost $1.5 million. Well, when $50,000 goes down 50%, it's not that big of a deal, because you're in the beginning stages. So It's really accumulating those assets for a long period of time. And then once you're there and you've got that nest egg secured, then it's putting it in something that'll give you a good, consistent long-term return. And basically, we just want to put your money in things that are going to go up in value. So a good example is you go price a truck today, Mark, and you buy, an F-150, a Chevy 1500, and you're going to go out there and buy it for $50,000. What's the probability in the next 10 years that's cheaper or higher in value?
Probably at least another 20,000 more.
Okay, exactly. So that's what we call inflation. So we want to make sure you have assets. If we're buying Apple stock today, we want Apple stock to be, jacked up a lot higher in 10 years from now.
Right.
So those are the kind of things we want to make sure the money's invested in a position that will keep pace with that inflation and be higher. Right now, if you got $500,000 in the bank, you're making less than 1%. And right now, inflation is running about 3.5%, 4%. Go try buy a piece of plywood.
Oh, it's impossible right now.
It's crazy. So we want to make sure over historical norms, historical averages. Right now, we're going through a really high peak. It reminds me when we had Hurricane Charlie, Francis, and Jean. We had almost every third house had a roof that needed to be replaced. I was one of them back then. And boy, it was lumber and materials went through the roof. We had the Dodd-Frank bill passed right around that time. You could borrow 125% and go get a home loan. You didn't have to do any planning because all you had to do was tell them what you made. Didn't even have to prove it.
And could you imagine trying to replace a house or a roof right now? I mean, with the price
Thank
of lumber.
goodness I don't have
labor.
to, but I will tell you, my project of the garage is still ready to roll here. And I will tell you exactly how much I spent on that roof. That was probably 4 times more than it should have been.
Oh, home ownership. Isn't it amazing? It
is so wonderful. And living through the construction zone of remodeling is always the blessing that makes me just have peace.
I'm starting to think your house is more like Summer Rental with John Candy.
It's really not that bad, but there's things I can't do and fix until this is done.
Right.
And it drives me crazy because I hate not being able to fix things. So I'm a fixer. You know, I like to fix and get things done. And when you have to wait on projects, because if you just fix it now, you're just going to destroy it later. So you just can't do that. It's just silly.
Thanks for listening. Want more from Art McPherson of McPherson Financial Group? Find us online at artofmoneyradio.com. We are an independent financial services firm helping individuals create retirement strategies using a variety of financial and insurance products to custom suit their needs and objectives. Securities offered through World Equity Group, Inc., member FINRA and SIPC, a registered investment advisor. Investment advisory services offered through ProStatus Group, LLC. McPherson Financial Group and ProStatus Group, LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by World Equity Group, Inc. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Investment financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. Art McPherson is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult with your attorney, accountant, and or tax advisor for advice concerning your particular circumstances. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Arthur McPherson. Florida Insurance License number A174725.
Today's show has been a work of art.